sure the audience will be pleased to be done with us. Um, the I first of all, I'd like to thank America's hardworking school teachers for buying me lunch today. I enjoyed it, and I'm grateful. Secondly, I'd like to say that I agree with very nearly everything that Myra and Ross said, and several things that Leo said. I'm not going to rise to some of the, as it were, red meat that he has put out there to carve. I am going to add two footnotes to what he said. One is just to note that the schismatic politics that trouble American society today are also highly visible on the left, and that a fair amount of the resistance to the Common Core is coming, albeit more quietly, from the left. I've also got to note that the laugh line about the second coming of Lynn Cheney, which referenced the early 1990s national history standards. The national history standards of that era were a joint product of Lynn Cheney and Diane Ravitch, the old Diane Ravitch. And I think it's very important for this to remain on the historical record itself. Speaking of historical record, I think, for my money, the most valuable item in your folder today is this AFT publication called Education for Democracy, 10 years old. It is the outgrowth of an earlier project going back 26 years to the Shanker era here, when the AFT joined up with the antecedent to the Fordham Foundation, which Diane Ravitch and I headed at the time together, called the Educational Excellence Network, in an earlier version of Education for Democracy that described what well-educated kids preparing for life in the American democracy ought to know and be able to do. The successor publication, even if it's 10 years old and has Sandy's name on it rather than Al's, is a terrific piece of work. And I would encourage you, when you can, to open it to page 12 and read the 4 precepts of the education we hoped for. And in case you haven't mastered the Common Core reading standards, let me read them to you. 4 things: a robust history, social studies curriculum starting in the elementary years and continuing through every year of schooling. Second, a full and honest teaching of the American story. Third, an unvarnished account of what life has been and is like in non-democratic societies. And fourth, finally, a cultivation of the virtues essential to a healthy democracy. I still believe that those are exactly what is needed for a proper civic education. I absolutely agree that we have not been delivering that by and large in American K-12 education, and there's ample evidence all over the place, including the NAEP results in both history and civics, about how little people know, and there's ample evidence of other kinds about how few civic virtues they seem to have internalized. So I think the problem is real. The importance is real. I don't think anybody's disputing the significance of schools in the imparting of civic capacity to future American citizens. The question is how do we get there, and is the Common Core helpful, and is C3 helpful? I think C3 is actually harmful, and I think the Common Core is mildly helpful. I think the Common Core does a good job of English language, arts, and math. If I didn't think so, we at Fordham wouldn't have given it honors grades and taken our lumps defending it against its critics, both left and right, for these last 3 years, ever since we gave it honors grades. On its merits, it is better than what most states came up with on their own by way of English and math standards. Most kids in America would be better off if their states not only adopted the Common Core, that's almost brainless, but implemented it in a serious way, which is hard. There's no doubt about that. The Common Core, as has been said, did not set out to produce national standards for science or history, social studies. They edged into history and social studies, mostly to advance the mastery of English language arts, mostly because they would like all teachers to be working on the deep reading type skills that they have set forth in English language arts, not just English teachers, and because they believe that these same skills, and they're very important skills, can be applied beneficially in other courses in addition to English language arts. And so there is a partial handling of social studies and science standards in the Common Core, but nobody there would claim that it was complete, and nobody there would claim that it had set out to be complete, and it's not. The other problem with the Common Core when it comes to civics and social studies is that the Common Core, with very few exceptions that Ross named, the handful of documents that they actually specify, the Common Core did not set out to dictate content or curriculum. It did not say what exactly to read, though it has a terrific list of suggested readings. It did not say, certainly, what to think. And it did not say in what sequence to teach the First World War and the Second World War. Some people aren't sure which came first. It's worth reflecting on. Those things are not in the Common Core and didn't try to be. The Common Core is mostly, ultimately, about very important skills. And they need to be filled in and fleshed out with content. I'm going to read you just one item from, this happens to be 9th and 10th grade reading under the heading of Literacy in History and Social Studies. 9th and 10th grade. Students should be able to, 9th grade, 10th grade students, cite specific textual evidence to support analysis of primary and secondary sources, attending to such features as the date and origin of the information. Okay, this is worth knowing how to do. It is worth doing. It is worth teaching kids how to do and then seeing whether they can do it. But it doesn't say what primary and secondary sources they should be analyzing here. So it could be the Declaration of Independence. It could be something altogether different. Theoretically, it could be my letter to my grandmother when I was 6. That would be a historical document of sorts, but probably not worth spending a lot of class time on. So the Common Core needs to be fleshed out with content, which it does not supply and didn't set out to supply, but which needs to be supplied. Now, a number of organizations are trying to supply content to go with the Common Core. Aspen is helping, AFT is helping, the Core Knowledge Foundation is helping, a little nonprofit that sits in our building called, believe it or not, Common Core, Lynn Munson's group is helping. They've actually done something very good on civic and social studies and history called the Alexandria Project. Just in the last few weeks it's come out. Worth checking out. It's kind of a map of ways to teach American history in alignment with the Common Core. But it's attempting to supply the content that the Common Core doesn't supply. Okay. That's where we are with the Common Core. So C3 now comes out. It avoids calling itself standards. It claims it's a framework. I believe it's going to be interpreted as standards. It attempts to attach itself to the Common Core. And in so doing so, I think it might actually damage the Common Core, because I think that C3, once it achieves a certain level of visibility and prominence in American society, is going to be denounced by a 99-to-1 vote of the U.S. Senate, just like the national history standards were 20 years ago. I think it is a travesty of a social studies education. It is completely content-free. You will not find in C3 anywhere George Washington or Abraham Lincoln or the Civil War or the First World War or the Second World War or anything else that is real. You will find instead skill statements. And they await being fleshed out with content, which is not here supplied. And if you ask the C3 people, they will tell you that states and districts are supposed to come up with the content on their own. Well, they've done a bang-up job of that over the years. As witnessed the NAEP results in civics and social studies, or if you wish, look at the Fordham reviews of states' standards in history, which they came up with on their own, mostly crap. A few good ones, by the way. Check out South Carolina's for a terrific example of U.S. history standards. Doesn't mean the kids are learning it. It means the state has provided an admirable set of things they ought to know. So what ought they to know, besides the things I rattled off? Well, it occurs to me, we're sitting in Washington, D.C. Wouldn't it be nice to know this week for a kid, what is the federal government? Where did it come from? Why do we have one? How does it work? What does it do? Who runs it? How is it organized? Wouldn't those be good things to know? Wouldn't it also be good to know in Washington this week, what is the Supreme Court? Why does it matter? How does it get there? Where did it get its authority? What is its role? Who puts people on it? How many of them are there? What are they like? Why are Nino Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg friends? The Washington Post told me that they are, and I've heard that elsewhere, and I know they both like the opera. But anyway, those are the things kids need to know, and those are not things you're going to find in C3. And for the most part, they're not things you're going to find in the Common Core. So the job remains ahead. It has not yet been done. Thank you.
Thank you.